discipline. Hopefully we can develop an understanding today of something called positive discipline. So I'm going to define that in a little bit. And I want you all to feel free to raise your hands and ask questions at any time during this presentation. I'll be talking primarily about how to deal with difficult youth or difficult behaviors later on in the talk. So we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, what is self-esteem in a child? Okay, self-esteem is defined as a child's confidence in his or her own worth or abilities, a realistic respect that the child has for himself or herself. It's not something that adults give to a child. It's something that we help the child develop in himself or herself through parenting or mentoring relationship to the child. Okay, forgive me because I have a lot of words on some of these slides, but I'll try to just touch on the important points. Although there's no single way that exists to build a youth self-esteem, there are some guiding principles. That's what I want you to get out of this presentation. And again, I want it to be collaborative, so feel free to raise your hand, ask questions. First, to identify positive role models to the child as examples of positive parenting and mentoring. For example, our priests, the saints, servants in the church, relatives and family friends, people whose behavior you want the child to role model after. Then we want to also encourage prayer with the child if it's an important part of the family belief system. Of course, in our culture and faith, it's a very important part of our lives. It's essential to our lives. Then we want to surround the child with positive people that can provide sound advice and support. So that's why the people we surround our children with are the very important there. That's why we want to surround them with people who encourage them, who support them, who are positive role models. We want to communicate respectfully with the child. How we communicate is more important than what we communicate, or at least as equally important. We as parents and mentors are like the saints were to their disciples. We must role model to the child the ability to remove ourselves, that is, to take a break from the situation if we feel that we're in danger of losing control as the mentors or the parents for the child in the situation. We want to communicate to them or attempt that it's important to try to problem solve once we ourselves are calm. If we get stuck as adults regarding how to solve a problem, we also should stop and think before we act and be reflective and seek advice. In this way, we begin to teach and build in the youth skills of self-respect, self-evaluation, and self-discipline. We as adults are the role models, and they as children, no matter what their ages, they notice everything we do, but especially when they're very young. But even teenagers will notice everything that we do. Other guiding principles teach the child that mistakes are opportunities to learn. We need to allow them to experience failure so that they will figure out how to problem solve the next time that they experience a similar challenge. This teaches the child how to be resilient through the ups and downs of normal daily life. Now, we want to be conscious of how to strengthen our parenting and mentoring style as servants or parents. None of us in this room are born as perfect parents, and none of us will be perfect parents. But it's important to recognize that parenting and mentoring for children, for youth, is a skill. It's a skill just like any other skill. It needs practice, it needs support and development. So we want to avoid excessive control and strictness. This results in no choices for the child. In other words, the approach of, you do it because I said so. The parent imposes the order, but the child doesn't learn to make choices and therefore does not get a chance to make mistakes and learn from his or her mistakes. Now, are there exceptions to this? Absolutely. For example, safety. There are times where you have to say, no, you must do it as I say so, even if the child wants to disobey you, if it's a dangerous situation, or if it's something that's a priority value or for the parent or the family system. But it's just a general guideline that the more that we can avoid being imposing excessive control, the more the child will feel that we care about their opinion. We want to understand their thoughts and feelings. And that encourages a dialogue with the child, even from a very, very young age, when they're toddlers, through that we want to build and strengthen until they become teenagers. If we've spent time when they're younger building that foundation of reciprocal, respectful communication, it will yield results when they get older, when they're at a difficult stage in their life, when they go through the temptations of being a teenager and being when their brains are more susceptible to acting on a lot of impulses. We want to avoid being controlling or punitive. These techniques, they instill blame and shame and pain, and they don't preserve the child's dignity. Now, there are studies that show that this type of parenting style is effective in the short term at decreasing undesirable behaviors. However, in the long term, it leads the child to develop anxiety, anger, or to learn ways to hide their behaviors so that they learn to manipulate and not be honest about their thoughts and feelings instead of stopping the undesirable behavior. We also want to avoid a permissive parenting mentoring style, a style of interacting with the child in which most everything is permitted without boundaries or structure, and the choices are unlimited. Too much freedom for the child is present in this style without any order. So you don't want to say you can do anything you want. That's probably not a good way to provide structure for the child. So we're looking for an in-between approach where you provide the child with limited choices, but that are appropriate for their developmental stage. And we're going to talk about the developmental stages in a second. We want to practice positive discipline. That's what most of this talk is about. It involves freedom with order, limited choices, being kind and firm at the same time. You can choose within limits that show respect for all. So as parents or mentors, we explain what is right and wrong, and then what will be the consequences for their choices or behaviors. The parents or the mentors ask the child to do something rather than tell the child to do something. Youth need to be rewarded for making good choices and for good behaviors. And this doesn't have to be with tangible things. It can be with praise, with extra attention, with extra privileges. Youth help to establish the rules. So we want to focus on the child's strengths and point out observed desirable behaviors on a regular basis. So you don't want to save your observations about how they make their bed every day, or how helpful they are at setting the table, or how regularly they do their homework, just on the days that you want them to do something, or on the days where they're misbehaving. You want to do that on a regular basis. Every day, find at least several times a day strengths or positive behaviors or qualities you've noticed in the child, and comment on them to the child in front of them. This helps them feel competent and that you acknowledge and recognize their efforts. Practice giving the children encouragement, understanding, not condoning a misbehavior, but just what we call a reflective statement. Like if you see that they throw a ball in the Sunday school class and hit another child, First, of course, you want to separate those two children, or at least have them place some space between those two children if one of them appears to be having some aggressive feelings and impulses towards the other child. You don't necessarily always need to remove them from the Sunday school class. In some cases, you may need to, but if the child is continually being persistent at trying to be aggressive towards the other child, but you want to impose a little bit of space and time for that child to calm down, and then you want to state to the child that's misbehaving, hey, I can tell you're angry, you're upset. Once you feel like it, can you tell me what's wrong? And if they're able to, you want to encourage them to open up to you about using their thoughts and feelings in their own words, because when they're able to, first of all, feel that they can control themselves enough to explain to an adult or another person how they're thinking or feeling, it's very empowering for the child, especially if they're just just been angry or anxious or upset about a situation. You want to focus on winning the child's cooperation rather than winning the battle with the child by expressing an understanding for the child's feelings and checking with the child to see if you're right. And that's what we were talking about before, is validating the child's feelings once they're capable of communicating what they were thinking or feeling. That statement that you make to the child, that I understand and I'm listening to you, even though I don't condone your behavior of hitting another child or of misbehaving, that's very empowering for the child, just that you recognize what they're thinking or feeling. And then showing empathy or understanding without condoning. Yes, Habibi, I understand. You're bored. You want to get out of Sunday school class now. It's too long for you. I understand. But you can't throw your shoes or kick another child or misbehave. And you don't even, that second statement I made, where you're actually telling them that their behavior is wrong, you can even hold back on saying that to encourage them to engage in a dialogue a little longer with you, so you really understand what they were upset about, and then you can come in with the corrective statement. Yes, Habibi, but you can't, that your behavior was wrong. So again, you heard me, I didn't say you're wrong or you're a bad boy, and most of you in here, I believe very strongly, I'm sure, are very conscious of your words with children, but all of us as adults, we get frustrated, we easily lose control, especially if we have a whole bunch of children that are misbehaving around us, or for busy parents at home. And so we need to just sometimes ourselves take a break and then come back and watch our words. If we can't take a break because that's unrealistic, we're the only adult there supervising a situation, then we have to take a few deep breaths and try to essentially get that child to practice taking some deep breaths with us, to try to get the emotional reactivity and the temperature in the room lowered enough so that you can understand exactly why that child was misbehaving, and that they will be able to respectfully listen to your advice and guidance. You want to share with the child your feelings and perceptions. I kind of touched on that. You want to invite the child to focus on a solution. Ask if she has any ideas on what to do in the future to avoid the problem. If she doesn't, or if they're too young to really express that well, offer suggestions until you can reach an agreement. And we can review some examples about that in a little bit. We want to keep in mind the child's developmental stage when considering rewards or consequences for behaviors. They vary depending on what stage they're in developmentally. However, all stages respond positively to something called unconditional regard. This is regular time interacting with a parent or adult who demonstrates a caring and attentive manner without asking anything in return from the child. So that's why just we call it in the field of child development, non-contingent, unconditional, positive time with the child. So you're not expecting anything from the child. They're not expecting any time with you. You're just hanging out. You're developing a relationship with them where they, you can, some parents like to play cards, kochena, or board games with their children. It's just the time you spend around the dinner table. If all of us lead busy lives, and I know a lot of you in here may have teenagers or preteens that sometimes have activities after school, but it's trying to find some time where you're just hanging out with your child. And for our family, I would say bedtime is that time. We all are running in 5 different directions during the day, but we try to get together at bedtime to pray. Sometimes we read a little bit of a story or read from the Bible, and so that there are lots of different ways you could do that. The psychosocial stages of development, there are different theories about child-youth development, and one of them is called Erikson's psychosocial stages. The first for this model is called trust versus mistrust, and this stage is from birth through 1-year-old. The child at this stage needs to have basic needs met, such as food, sleep, shelter, nurturing from a consistent caregiver. So this is the stage where you have to be open to your baby's cues and respond to your baby when they're tired or sleepy. And having the child's basic needs met allows the child to trust in caregivers and adults. This is called healthy attachment. And when the child doesn't get consistent responses to having their needs met at this stage, it can cause problems in their ability to relate to adults or caregivers in a trusting, non-anxious way later on. Toddler stage, ages 1 to 3, this is called autonomy versus shame or doubt. Basically, the child's learning new skills of starting to walk and talk. They start to experiment with independence from the parents. We don't want to discipline a child for wetting or soiling themselves. That's a normal developmental task at that stage. Instead, we want to encourage them to let you know if they need to go pee-pee or poo-poo, and praise them if they try to communicate this, even if they fail and have an accident. Beginning at age 2 to 3 years old, parents can use a timeout, which is like a break time, in a quiet area of their room or house, usually 1 minute for every year of age. If the child tantrums, that's not the only way to discipline a child at that age. Some parents find that certain children are too hyperactive to be able to take a break in this manner. So there are lots of other ways that you can help soothe or encourage the child to develop some self-soothing skills. In preschool, ages 3 to 5, that's initiative versus guilt stage. The child becomes more curious as he or she further explores the surrounding world around him or her. She or he begins to copy adult behaviors with their play. The child's play and behavior becomes more purposeful, and the child begins to ask the question, why, often during this stage. The family is still the most significant relationship. So during this stage, the child is going to be asking a lot of questions over and over and over. Sometimes if they don't, that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the child, but there's nothing wrong with them if they do ask a lot of questions at this stage. That's very expected. They're starting to be able to communicate what they're observing and experiencing because their ability to speak and communicate is improving. A school-age child, ages 6 to 11, this is the industry versus inferiority change. The goal for this stage is for the child to feel a sense of competence. So the child creates and accomplishes numerous new skills and knowledge. The most significant relationships they have are with school peers and the neighborhood and school teachers. The child is driven by rules of school and neighborhood and start to question the parents as the complete authority for rules. So if you're servants or Sunday school teachers or parents in the church, you will be also very important figures for school-age children, for children at this age. They will be looking at you, they will be observing your behaviors, and they'll be observing how you manage your frustrations or your boredom or your normal human, strong emotions or difficulties, impatience at times that we all feel. Teenager stage is 12 to 18 years old. This is identity versus role confusion. At this stage, the youth must struggle to begin discovering his or her identity while negotiating and struggling with social interactions and fitting in, and further developing a sense of morality, of right from wrong. The goal of this stage is to begin to adjust to increasing responsibilities and to start to develop a sense of identity. Adolescents begin to develop a strong devotion to ideals, causes, and friends, and that's very normal and typical. If they start to want to engage you at teenagers in discussions about politics or philosophy or ethics or morality that the church teachings, that's it's very healthy to encourage that kind of discussion with them. And if they strongly disagree with you or disagree with something that the church says or that the school says or politicians say, that's actually a very normal developmental expectation. And at this stage, it's not wrong for them to feel this way, but what you want to do is you want to guide them to understanding that it's okay to test and engage in different types of thoughts with adults, but to do so in a respectful manner, and then reassure them that if they continue to grow, they may or may not change their opinions about those things. It's reassuring for a teenager often to hear that that you don't. If you disagree with them, they're not a bad person. They're not wrong. You need to not necessarily condone what they believe if you disagree with it, but you need to show respect for it, just as you did when they were younger and you engaged in that kind of respectful dialogue. Of course, that's going to be much more challenging with a teenager because, as we all know, teenagers, they are much more sophisticated. They've developed a lot more knowledge about the world and philosophy and politics and different arguments about morality, but it's always an adventure with a teenager, and I think the key is, again, trying to maintain that healthy, respectful dialogue so that they don't feel that you're shutting them out or that you're pushing them away, or that you want to maintain that dialogue with the teenager, because you want that teenager to come back to you when they're having a crisis in their lives and they need your guidance. So teenagers are a whole other talk, but we can talk about any examples or questions you might have about them in a bit. Okay. Regardless of their age or stage of development, all children want to feel a sense of belonging and significance. They need to feel loved and needed and important. So as adults, what can we do? We can help them develop self-esteem by providing them with opportunities and activities to fulfill these needs in an appropriate way for their age or developmental stage. So, one principal example of that is don't do anything for a child that a child can't do for himself or herself. We rob children of opportunities to believe that they're capable through their own experience when we do too much for them. Instead, they may develop the belief that they need to be taken care of or that they're entitled to special treatment or service. Now on to a misbehaving child. A misbehaving child is trying to tell you or tell us that they are discouraged. They're discouraged about something they want. About something. They want to belong and feel needed or important, and they don't know how or don't have the skills to do so in a socially acceptable way. So they do so in a socially unacceptable way. They may be aggressive. They may be either verbally or physically. They may, some of them may try to injure themselves. Of course, if you observe a child trying to injure themselves or expressing thoughts of wanting to hurt themselves, it's important to reach out to a BUNA and a mental health professional at that point to further explore what's going on with that child, because as some of you may know in here, the epidemic of suicide in youth in America, the last 4 or 5 years, the rates have been increasing, and that's due to a lot of different factors probably, but what's very important is to immediately take seriously if a child makes any kind of statement or engages in any behavior that indicates that they are they're having thoughts of hurting themselves. Even if you think it's for attention, what's important is that's kind of like a cry for help. That child is giving us a cry for help, and we need to respond to that and kind of surround that child with a lot of efforts at understanding what they're going through and trying to find solutions. And a mental health professional and the church can be great sources. Sometimes you don't, you just need one of those. A BUNA is an incredible source, and the servants in the church of wrapping their arms around that child or that youth and providing them with the support and love and understanding that they need. If they feel that they still need additional help, they can reach out to a mental health professional like a psychiatrist, psychologist, therapist. Okay. When a child is misbehaving, try to get to know the child and their situation and provide them with opportunities for them to talk and for you to listen. Now, if the child's a toddler and they don't have that ability to communicate developed very well, of course they're not going to be able to say much to you to really explain their thoughts and feelings. You're not going to be capable of that developmentally. But there are other ways you can engage that toddler. Once the toddler is calm, you can engage them in an activity that they enjoy that helps them to relax. That's what we call experiential interventions that help a child, what we call displace or channel those thoughts and feelings that are making them upset into an activity that will cause them to release those thoughts and feelings in a healthy, positive manner. If they're very young and tantrumy, you may need to guide them to a quiet area for a break until they're calm. We mentioned that before. If they're school age and they won't talk, they're kind of shut down. We call that internalized. You try to find someone with whom they will talk or an activity which will allow them to feel relaxed or happy. Any kind of, that's why as parents, a lot of us in this room or servants know that when we encourage children to engage in activities they enjoy, like sports or certain clubs they enjoy, it actually, studies have shown that releases happy chemicals in the brain, healthy chemicals that promote well-being and actually promote a sense of happiness, and those chemicals are called endorphins. you don't necessarily even have to talk with the child, but just trying to guide them to an activity which will allow them to release, to serve as a source of release and happiness for the child can be very empowering for the child. And it will help you as a caregiver too. Then it's important to check in with the child regularly and unconditionally. Children, they need to feel that adults care about them. They need to feel that adults aren't just checking in with them every once in a while. They need regular check-ins. And most of you who are servants or parents know that you regularly see your children every day. You ask them, Habibi, Habibti, how are you? How are things going? And that's why it's important to have some family time or some time to see those children on a regular basis. You want to provide them with alternate opportunities to feel needed and important. This is very important, especially as children get older, but also when they're younger. Children like to help. And that is very helpful at developing their self-esteem. So getting them involved in any kind of volunteerism, or recognizing them in Sunday school or in their peer group at school or in the neighborhood or in a club, that for when you observe that they have positive behavior, not for any reason, but if they deserve it and if they've earned it, that can be very empowering, helpful for their self-esteem. What you want to understand is that volunteerism doesn't have to be anything fancy, and doing chores at home to help at the family or at school or in the neighborhood can be just as important as volunteering, to feed the homeless or to do some. It's just as important, if not more important, to have the kids start to feel like they're mastering a way that they can be helpful to their family community and then maybe to a larger community like at school or in the neighborhood or at church. Any little thing they can do, whether it's passing out pamphlets in church or in their Sunday school class, giving them each a specific individualized task that they can be recognized for that will help them develop a skill, and then if they do it, if they even try to do it, even if they don't do it totally successfully, you can comment on that effort and say, good job, Habibi, Habibti, for trying. Just your effort is important, and it's not just that effort that's important for them, but that you recognize that effort. And I think most of you in here realize that recognition is super important. The 4 criteria for effective discipline. Okay, now we want to get into what really makes discipline effective by some people who are more expert than I. One, you want to ask the question, is the discipline kind and firm at the same time? Is it respectful and encouraging? 2, does it help the child feel a sense of belonging and significance, connection? Number 3, is it effective long-term? Punishment, which is a type of discipline, it's called a aversive or negative discipline. It works in the short term, but it has long-term negative results. So punishment it can be lots of different things. It can be physical punishment, like spanking. It can be emotional punishment, like verbally, chastising somebody in a kind of like a negative way. That's effective in the short term because the child won't want to engage in the behavior again. They'll be less likely to engage in it. But in the long term, it can have effects on that child's emotional and physical well-being. So what we want to do is use positive discipline instead of negative discipline or instead of punishment. So positive discipline is things like, if you do this, you will get this. If you clean your room, Daddy and I will go take a bike ride with you later, or you'll get to play a game on your Nintendo later, within limits, of course. So, in other words, you want to teach the child something that later on in life is going to be, they're going to need to learn, and they need to start learning it young. And that is, if you engage in helpful behavior, socially acceptable behavior, or positive behavior of any kind, you will get positively rewarded for it. It may not be an allowance, it may be praise, but it will be something good. And you as parents or mentors have to decide what will be the form of the reward that you feel is appropriate for that child, for your child. And does another guiding principle about effective discipline, does it teach valuable social and life skills for good character? Valuable social and life skills are respect, concern for others, problem solving, accountability, contribution, and cooperation. So self-esteem, in general, it resembles a plant that needs water to grow, right, and nutrients. It's in an individual, it's like a plant with roots. The roots are development of and a belief in personal capabilities. If somebody believes I am capable, I can learn to do an important or needed task which is of value. That's an important root. Another important root is strong belief in one's significance in primary relationships. So if you're a child in a family unit or a child in a classroom, it's very important to feel that you're significant, you're valuable in that unit somehow, that you have a purpose, that you have a voice. Then a strong belief in one's personal power of influence over life. If you have good self-esteem, you feel that you can influence what happens to you. So a child needs to feel that. They need to feel that I have an ability to have influence either through what I communicate or how I behave in life. Other roots of strong self-esteem are strong intrapersonal skills, the ability to understand personal emotions and to use that understanding to develop discipline and self-control. Then strong interpersonal skills, which are the ability to work with others and develop friendships through communicating, cooperating, negotiating, sharing, empathizing, and listening. Then strong systemic skills, the ability to respond to limits and consequences of everyday life with responsibility, adaptability, flexibility, and integrity. And then strong judgmental skills, the ability to use wisdom and to evaluate situations according to appropriate values. So the final thoughts, this is the last slide. Pray with the child every day. Practice a positive approach. Recognize and praise specific strengths and observe desirable behaviors by the child every day. Listen to the child. And I would say that applies to all important relationships in your life, but children, youth especially need this. They have to feel that we are listening. Encourage. You always want to encourage them. You don't want to, like if you... they say, this is too hard, I don't like to do this, no, I'm not going to do this. Instead of saying, you can do it, do it. You want to instead adopt an encouraging tone. You can do it, Habibi, you can do it, Habibti. Let's break it down into small steps. Let's do this step first, and then let's do this next step a day later. And it's kind of like your kid's science project. We're kind of going through that in our house right now. You can't do the science project in one night. So you want to encourage the child. Let's just focus on picking the choice for the experiment. What are we going to do together? Maintain respect and dignity of the child in all interactions. So no matter how young the child is, you don't want the child, you want to be parental in your attitude and tone of voice, but you do not want to be controlling or harsh or punitive or abusive. So that means maintaining a respectful tone, respectful words. And does that mean we do that all the time as parents or servants? No, because we're not perfect. We're human. We, as Abuna always reminds us, we sin. But we have to forgive ourselves, and we have to practice prayer, and we have to try again to learn from our mistakes. We have to consult and seek advice if we're stuck or overwhelmed by a child's behavior. So many of my parents, they come to me and they say, I'm a terrible parent. I can't believe I can't control my child's behavior. I try to do the best I can. The child keeps on acting out, or the child stops talking, or whatever it is. Whatever is the problem, I tell them, you are a good parent for reaching out to me to try to, or reaching out to the teacher, or reaching out to, in our faith, we believe in reaching out to Abuna and to our servants in the church and to our family friends and people that we trust and we know are good support systems and role models. Don't be afraid to do that, because we all need that. And children and their welfare are our futures. So, like I said, as we all know, when we invest in them from a young age, and even if we've made mistakes when they're younger that seem like big mistakes, or we haven't spent enough time with them, it's okay. We have a chance to still correct that as they get older. We have to forgive ourselves, and try to really listen to what the child is telling us, and then seek extra help and support if we need it. Okay, that's the formal presentation, but now I'd like to be open to any of your questions, feedback, and if you want to talk one-on-one afterwards, that's fine too. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Yes.
Like she always scared, which I don't understand why, because we never left her alone. Like I'm trying to say, we do whatever we can and whatever from our eyes, like the best we do for her. But she always scared. And meanwhile, she have an older sister, only 2 years older than her. She's completely the opposite of that. Like she doesn't scare of anything. She's always behaved very good. And the other one, she behaves nice too. It's just the problem with her, it is a scary thing. Like I be sitting next to her, and she wanna open the door. She'd be scared to open that door, unless I have to go with her, holding my hand really tight to feel like. For me, she wanted to feel safe before she opened that door. Well, I understand, but why? Like
is she in school yet?
This is her first. I mean, she used to go to kindergarten, but this year is her first year in the school as a kindergarten too. She's still scared. Like if we sitting upstairs and she wanted to go get something from downstairs, there is no way she will go by herself. She has to take her sister with her, or she has to grab me with her. Like, please come with me. I said, why, Habibi? You good. You can do it. This is our house. You've been here. You know what's everything. Yeah, but it's okay. You could come with me. You could come with me. That's, but I know she's scared. So what is the solution for that? I mean, which I try my best, but if something specific, you could put my hand on it, I could be more than happy to do it.
Yeah, it's difficult to know without doing a full assessment, but I would start out by saying that every child is born with a different temperament. So sometimes, children that are more kind of like shy or introverted.
She is shy.
Yeah,
she's very shy. Like when she was a baby, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No problem.
When she was a baby, I used to carry her. If somebody come and say hi to her, she will never. She will put her face in my chest and she will hide, and she will not even talk or speak.
Sure.
Right now, she's a little bit better, but still, if she doesn't know you, she will not even say hi. When you say hi to her, she will put her face down and she will try to hide.
So it's very important that she does not feel that you think there's something wrong with her, because she's at an age where, as we said, she's very vulnerable, her self-esteem.
Yeah.
So what you want to do is you want to help her without making her feel too self-conscious, especially since she's shy. So we call it doing it in an ego-supportive way. So every time she asks you to go down the stairs with her, that's fine. But start to try to find little opportunities to what we call gradually expose her to the anxiety-provoking situation.
Like what?
For example, you said that she wants to go from upstairs to downstairs, but she wants to hold an adult's hand, a trusted adult's hand. Okay, so, go down with her like 3/4 of the way the first time. The last quarter of the way, say, oh, she won't do it. She refuses. Okay.
Like
Yes, please.
last week was we had to go for Abuna Dawood Lami. So we're sitting in the hotel. So you know how the room it is.
Yes.
So we're sitting in the room and the closet door is closed. So we had opened all the doors, wherever, but one of the doors we did not open. So we're sitting in the room. So we're wondering what that door is. Oh, that's the closet. We didn't open the closet. So I'm like, go ahead, Emma, open it. And she's like, no, come with me. Like, we sitting in the bed. Like, I'm sitting in the bed. I could put my hand and open that door. Like, it's really close. Like, it's not really far. So her sister say, I'll go and open it, which is this. The other one, she said, no, she couldn't do it.
Okay.
She couldn't do it by herself. Like, you have to go hold the hand or stand up with her. Like, I went up from the bed, holding her hand.
And what door? It's a closet door?
Yeah,
or just a closet?
Okay. It's just the point is she scared to do it. Right. You see what I'm saying? So.
Right. So in that case, you don't push the child.
Okay.
You have to do it until she's ready. But you try to find, like I said, opportunities where there may be less people around. Like when she was going down the stairs for that first example, were there a lot of people at the bottom of the stairs or in the room that was going to be at the bottom of the stairs? Okay. So the next time there's an opportunity when there's only one person there that she knows she'll run into, or there's no people even, that's the opportunity to try to encourage her for that very last step to go by herself. However, when a child says, no, I'm not going to do it because of anxiety, it's important not to push them. What you want to do is you want to show them that you're going to be supportive, because naturally what happens at that age, at 5 years old, is they start to be exposed in school and in the community to a lot of those anxiety-provoking kind of situations, and school naturally will start to help her start to decrease some of that anxiety, because it's going to be exposing her to more social situations of different types where the teacher will be asking her to do things, or she will feel a certain peer pressure to do certain things, and she'll be naturally exposed to some of those things. Now, if the teacher says, hey, I'm having problems with her, she is not doing what she's supposed to do because she's so anxious. Is the teacher starting to say any of that?
No.
Okay, if the teacher is starting to say that, then continue to support her as much as you can. Now that may seem to be against what I said about try to have the child assume as much responsibility as they can for the, try to give them things to do. But you're not enabling her. You're not enabling her because she has an anxiety issue. And some kids, it's important to understand, for normal development, some kids are a little more anxious than others. There's nothing wrong with that. I myself was extremely anxious when I was very little. I remember my mom told me horror stories about it. And what you have to understand is development it's a trajectory. Sometimes it's 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. But over time, as long as the child is not becoming a monk, is not, staying at home and refusing to leave the house, is what we call agoraphobia, or is not totally avoiding, eating or social, or avoiding even talking to their parents, that can be dealt with through normal kind of school exposure. So what you're doing is not enabling the child, it's reassuring the child, it's respecting the child's anxiety, and you're doing everything right, I think.
Yeah, I'm trying to make her feel safe as much as I can. When I feel like she's really scared of whatever, I always hug her and take her and go with her, you know what I'm saying? But it's just I'm thinking if something else I could do that it help her come out of the situation.
So again, it's looking for those opportunities where you can expose her to take some more risks at coming outside of her comfort zone, at facing some situations she normally would not have felt comfortable in, but doing it in a emotionally supportive way. So like trying not to flood her with anxiety if she's normally naturally shy and anxious. You don't want to force her to stand up in front of the Sunday school class and read every Sunday. You want to, try to practice with her, maybe, reading together first, and then encouraging her.
She enjoyed that.
Great.
Like if I sit
Okay.
and read with her, she will enjoy it, and she would like to stand and say something, but it's not in front of a lot of people.
Sure.
But what it bothered me really, but I just want to talk when she was sitting next to me, because they start to understand what I'm saying.
Right.
So she is lately, this past 2 weeks, she's getting very, very, I don't know how to say it, but it's just like she wanted her way or no way. Like if you tell her for something, like if she's grabbing something and you tell her, oh baby, no, this is not the right thing you take, or here, take this one, or don't wear this one, or take that one, whatever. She will keep screaming and yelling, not really, like she's screaming, crying. Like if you leave her, she will may stay for 10, 15 minutes completely crying, to the point sometimes she loses her voice.
Poor thing. Okay.
This is just because you don't do anything. All you said, oh no, this is wrong, you cannot take this one, or take this one instead.
Because you told her no,
Yes.
or wait. Does she have a
wasn't-
problem with waiting for certain things too,
No,
or
just because
no?
you told her no.
Okay.
And this is only this. It's been like a week or two. It wasn't like that before. Never was like that before. So I'm wondering if has something to do with the situation of scary, or this is just something new behavior that she picked up from school, whatever. I don't know.
It's hard to say without knowing more about her, but it could be. Those are good thoughts that maybe, maybe someone at school responded a certain way and told her no, maybe a little harshly, but I wouldn't necessarily assume that or jump to that conclusion. It might just be because anxious kids that have a little more anxiety than other kids their age, they tend to be a little bit more cognitively rigid. In other words, it's very hard for them to accept no. It's hard to accept wait. It's
She wasn't like that. Like before, she used like,
Okay.
even when I'm doing something in the house, like we do like little bit. Like I will have her do something to help me. It's not really she's going to help, but I'm trying like this. So she used to do it. Like I would say, here, you take this and clean that part.
And
I
she
give
would
her
do
sis-
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Let
I
me
give her
ask you
sis-
something. Was she more of a passive child before, and now she's starting to be a little bit more like crying when she said before she was more accepting and
Yeah, she
and
accepting
okay.
like not everything,
Right.
because she's a word little. She always have her own opinion.
Okay.
But I expect that and I respect it, and I always leave her with her opinion. But if I tell her something to do, she has no problem with it. She usually do it like we divide the responsibility, whatever we do. I say, here, you take this and clean that spot, stuff like that. I just want to train them to share and help
Right.
and do this and that. She used to do it. It was very nice, no problem.
It may be if she's very different now and does,
Yeah.
and when you tell her no, and before she would accept no
Yeah.
about things, it may be also that she's starting to kind of assert a little bit more independence, and
Think so?
that's and that's
To
a
refuse
normal.
everything.
Yes, because in a way she doesn't know how to regulate her own emotions to self-soothe before she can tell you why she was so upset, or I wanted to do that, and you said no. She might not be able to communicate that yet because she becomes overwhelmed with her emotions, and she's still very young relatively. So I think some of your expectations may be based, you may be comparing her to the other grandchildren, and believe me, I know all about that, because it's a normal human thing. We all compare our children to other children, but they're all unique personalities with different needs, different developmental trajectories. They reach their developmental tasks socially, emotionally, physically at different points within that developmental stage. So it's important to kind of forgive yourself and say, okay, I thought she would be like Susie, but she's not like Susie. She's a little different. She hasn't yet accepted that if I tell her no, it's not the end of the world, and that she can compose herself and then just move on to transition to whatever is next expected of her. So it's I think it's what I would do for a child like that is encourage her to, first of all, validate her feelings. In other words, tell her, Habibti, I can see this is difficult for you. Then next, practice some self-soothing skills for her, like just giving her like some paper to draw or scribble on, coloring book, anything like that, because that allows her just to practice some what we call soothing through doing an activity, which may help her release some of that extra emotion, that heightened emotional state. And then when she's calmer after doing that activity, try to engage her in a conversation, because she's 5, so she's old enough verbally to, as long as you don't wait too long, to remember what made her upset, the thought or the feeling. So then you want to say, Habibti, I noticed you were upset earlier when I said no. Can you tell me, what was going on? What were you thinking or feeling? And this will encourage her, if she's able, if she's capable, to talk to you. And that will help, that will give her a sense of capability, of empowerment, that, first of all, you care as an adult about how she felt, and you want to understand how she was feeling in her own words. And then you can, if you can, get to the next stage, which is, help me decide on a solution for the next time you feel that way. What can we do? Did the coloring book help you feel calmer? Okay, you can't have, the second Capri Sun that I told you no for, but let's talk about the next time you can have the Capri Sun. I think you can have it, in another few hours. And if that makes her angry again, you're going to find out quickly what things will kind of trigger her more, and what things might actually help her by just trying to engage in that discussion, but only once she's calmer, once that emotional temperature has come down a little bit.
Not when she's angry.
Yes, and helping her to talk to you once she is calmer is going to make her feel like she's important, like you care, and but you want to encourage her to use her words yourself. You don't want to put words in her mouth if you can help it. So, yeah, I hope that helps. Best wishes. I can tell you're caring, Tita, and she's gonna do great. Right. Yeah, and I keep on observing her, because she's at it. She's, once they start school, they do change a lot. So it's not necessarily anything to worry about. Just continue to give her some flexibility in your reaction, but to touch base with her. You're welcome.
You mentioned about dealing with hard little kids. Example, Sunday school and any activities in a camp. How to deal with a little kid that's hard to deal, and I separate the child and I talk, and they go back and engage with the group, and they're still acting up. And at the same time, you don't want to send a message to the behaving kids or the children that the attention is going to the misbehaving child, not to you, because you're a good person. So they start imitating these actions to get more attention of you.
Absolutely, wonderful point. So a misbehaving child, if the behaving children see that the adult is diverting their attention only to the misbehaving child, that sends a message to the behaving child. Well, they're getting all the attention. I guess being good in my behavior doesn't mean anything. I'm going to act out. So for a misbehaving child, a couple of things. There are the immediate actions you need to take, and then there are the long-term actions. The immediate actions are just to control the situation so the child is not too disruptive, because then It's just like a teacher in school. She can't or he can't get through their lesson plan, and then the rest of the children suffer. So what does that teacher do? If most of you are, I don't know if some of you are teachers in here in the school districts, they remove that child if they're too disruptive. If you can keep them in the classroom, that's always the best, and that's why the first intervention that teachers usually have in the school districts is they have an area for, it depends on the developmental level, but for children up until usually second grade, they'll have an area, a quiet area for children who need to kind of self-regulate or they're emotionally dysregulated. They're tantruming, they're being loud, they're calling out, they're whatever it is. And if the child is able, with you as the adult, saying, I would identify an area in the Sunday school class that's not too reinforcing. In other words, it doesn't have toys or games, but just has some relaxing colors, maybe an alphabet mat, one of those padded mats, for the children. And just say, okay, it's, we have to go to the break area. You can decide on a cute little pretty name for it, and even have the children decide on the name for that area. That's the area when you're feeling, I don't know. There are so many cute names out there, but you can have the children come up with a cute name that's not a negative name but a positive name. This is the area where we go to relax. And then you're going to, okay, Susie or Johnny starts being loud or disruptive. Please direct them. Don't ask them. Please, well, first you ask them. First you say, can you prompt them verbally to stop the misbehaving. If you prompt them more than twice and they're still misbehaving, you have to be more parental, more directive. So you have to say, please go to the relaxation area, and when you feel calmer, then you can come back to us, okay? If they refuse and they still can't walk themselves on their own independently to that area, then you have to call for assistance from another adult, or just to remove them from that classroom area so that you can get back on task for your academic or spiritual goal for that class. And you may need to put your head out the door and call any close adult nearby, hey, Habibti, please, would you take Johnny to get a drink while he needs to calm down for a few minutes, just relax. But when he and you can tell that adult that, and with the child hearing you, you can come back to class once you get a drink and you feel that you're in control and your behavior it allows you to focus and not be disruptive in class. And again, I always use the term good behavior. Try to avoid saying you're being good or you're being bad, because then they personalize it and they think that my teacher thinks I'm a good person or a bad person. But most of you guys know all that already. So now once the child is out of the classroom, if they still can't, self-regulate, it's okay. They can miss that class. What's important is that the other children are getting their lesson non-disruptively, and then when you're done the class, go back and find out how that child is doing. Hopefully you'll have put them with an adult who, or other adults who can observe their behavior. Are they able to calm down? Are they not able to calm down? And then you can approach their parents and enlist their help and say, hey, Susie was very disruptive in class today, or she was very aggressive verbally or physically, or she said something very distressing. I need your help. Is there any new stressors going on in the house? Are there any new changes? Did she start a new school? Is the family under more stress in some way? Trying to start to do a little investigation about what might be going on with that child, to try to so that the church can try to help support that child in that family unit. Because really, when we treat youth, we're not treating youth. You know that we're treating the whole family unit. It's not because there's anything wrong with the family unit. It's because the family unit often is overwhelmed or under stresses or going through so much that they may not have even a chance to, because they're so busy with work and the children in the home and their other needs, elderly parents, sick relatives, that they might not have a chance to reach out and ask for help themselves as adults. So it's important to reach out to them, to show that you notice the child maybe having a tough day. I'm just noticed your child's having a tough day. Is there anything going on? Anything I can do to help? And, again, that doesn't mean there's anything wrong. That's a big problem. But the child might be physically sick, might be feeling ill. But for the children who are persistently, week after week, very disruptive or misbehaving, those are the children you really want to talk to the other servants about, and Abuna, to get a sense of how can we help? Do we know what's going on with the parents? Are they under more stress? Are they physically ill? Are they going through other stressors that we and Abuna can talk to the parents or try to find out to help the servants with what's going on. But that's a long answer. Sorry, short question.
No. How about if the child passes the limits? The first question was about a child just acting up in a Sunday school class, and that was the answer. But if the child passes the limits, like calls the servant, an adult servant, a name, or even curse,
right,
that should have a different reaction, I understand.
Absolutely. I mean, if a child is disrespectful, you have to model for them respect, but also you have to be loving but firm, kind but firm. Remember, the elements of positive discipline are kind but firm. So you have to be, which is what Jesus taught us, and is you can't tolerate wrong or disrespectful behavior. So you give people chances, but if they say it once, if they, it depends on what the term is. Is it like a curse word or slang word? Okay, so you first say verbally, Johnny, that is inappropriate language. That please do not say this again. If you say it again, you may need to leave. And sometimes that some people might feel that might be giving too much undue attention to that comment. So you may need to try a couple of different verbal approaches. I would say never ignore a very disrespectful comment. If it's something that's just loud or disruptive, initially you can ignore it until it's too disruptive, then you give verbal prompts and then remove them from the classroom. If it's something where they're saying something very bad, you want the other children to hear that child has to be put on notice. No, Habibi, no, Habibti. You're a good person, but that language is wrong. That language is wrong. There is right language, which is respectful, kind, and the same thing for tone of voice. If you observe a child talking to another child, and they're using respectful language, but their tone of voice is wrong, you have to stop them. You have to acknowledge it in front of them, and try. In that case, I would try to do it without the child being in front of a lot of other people, because you don't want the child to feel like they've been, that you think they're a bad person, but your tone of voice, sorry girls, your tone of voice can also make a big difference, because if you do it, with a smile on your face, or not necessarily smile, because that would be not sincere or disingenuous, but like if you do, with the tone of voice Abuna uses, in that gentle but firm tone of voice, that again, we have to be parental without kind but firm, but respecting the child's thoughts and feelings, and the fact that they're very aware of how other people are going to be looking at them when you give them feedback, but at the same time acknowledging to them, either in private by pulling them aside or in front of other children if it's in a small class, that what they did was wrong. And it depends on the age and the maturity level of the child too. So there are a lot of variables that come into play, and you may need to, if you don't know the child well, you may need to, after the class, even talk to the parents and say, or to someone that knows the child, a good friend of theirs, does Johnny use that language a lot to adults? Does he use that language to his parents? Because that might be something the parents are struggling with and not know how to address. So you need to be able to support and understand and reach out to the parents or to Abuna to say, the parents might need some help because they might not know. This is a very strong-willed child who seems to have a problem with respectfulness, and how do we, as a church community, address this? And if the parents hear that they're not bad parents, they might open up about the difficulties they're having with that child's respectful language or other behaviors. And then you can begin, they might feel a sense of relief, and you begin to discuss options with them, solutions. But when a child, I deal with emotionally, behaviorally disturbed children in my line of work. So when they're disrespectful to me, it depends on the situation. But if they're calling me a bad word, I deal with it differently than you would probably deal with it, because my children's problems are a lot more severe than a lot of the children's in here, so I tend to ignore that kind of language. But here you don't want to ignore it, because you want to role model for them that respectfulness does not just start in our boundaries, in our physical behavior with each other. It also has to do with the language we use to each other, the tone of voice, the recognition of each other's needs. Parents that children, sometimes they think their parents were put on earth just for them. They don't realize their parents have needs too. Their parents have needs to take a break. Their parents have needs for private time. But when you become a parent, of course, we put our children's needs first. But as if the child is a teenager, they're capable of understanding that sometimes you as parents have needs, and you should be honest with them about, when you need their help or when you need their understanding for certain times where you may need to not necessarily take them every Saturday to the baseball game. Maybe they can get a ride from one of your trusted family friends or things like that. Did I answer your question? Okay. It's very individualized, a lot of these responses. Can you give me an idea of how old that child was that was disrespecting the servant in the classroom?
It's different situations, but normally they will be like starting 3rd, 4th, 5th graders.
Okay.
So they understand you quite well. It's just they choose to do that.
Right. So a lot of times for that age, what really helps is, do you have any system of privileges and rewards in Sunday school class?
They do, yes.
Okay, wonderful. Do the ones that are acting that way, do they feel upset that when those privileges that when they didn't earn them because they've used disrespectful language?
Unnecessarily, because different behaviors, like sometimes it's outside the Sunday school, limits. Like they're playing around, on a free time or, and they just like, if you like direct them to do something, they will be answering you back.
Right. Right. But I might be giving them too much attention. I think, if they do it outside of the Sunday school class, that's the time where in Sunday school they have to hold themselves very, controlled. And finally they get to be kids when they're outside of Sunday school class and play. And that's when they're likely to be more impulsive and say more hurtful things or use more impulsive language. So, I would just pull them aside privately and say, Habibti, Habibi, this is wrong. And you're a good young man. I love you. I use the sandwich technique. I say a positive praise or compliment or strength, I notice. And then I put in the kind of corrective or critical statement. And then I follow it by another positive comment or praise so that they first hear the positive instead of always hearing the corrective or critical statement first. That's very important. And it's not being disingenuous or fake. It's actually just role modeling for them that in our lives we have to recognize each other's strengths and beautiful qualities first before we start, criticizing and saying, and always, like I always say, I wish you could have done it this way instead of that way. Or I wish next time you would try it this way and that way. And just always being encouraging. And I know it's hard, but I really think you can do it. And I'm here for you if you ever want to talk, about how hard it is to play with Johnny because he doesn't do what you want to do, or, because what their priorities are a lot different from what our priorities are. So to them, it's a very big thing if their friend doesn't want to do what they want to do. For us, we're like, it's no big deal. Why can't they realize it's no big deal? It is a big deal to them. So that's why you want to encourage them to open up to you slowly. Once they're calm, that's the key, is, again, getting their emotional temperature down, helping them practice some self-soothing, first separating them from the other children if they're in a Sunday school class, by encouraging them to go to that relaxation area. If they're too disruptive, they do have to leave the class for a while. But when they come back, whether it's that week or the following week, making a big, not a huge deal about it, because you don't want them to feel self-conscious, but just recognizing in front of the others that they made a good decision by choosing to try to control themselves and calm themselves. And again, sometimes that's not totally within their control when they're that emotionally heightened. They just need that break outside of the class. But whenever they come back saying, it's great to see you again, wonderful job coming back, and take it one day at a time. You sort of have to play it by ear sometimes. That's what we mean by that individualized approach. Okay, I've kept you too long. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Manel. We thank you brought your family with you. That's very nice. So she have Olivia. She's a good example for kids. Let us pray.
Thank you, Abuna.
No, thank you. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, one God, Amen. Thank you, Lord. Thank you for you be with us in gathering together. Thank you to express our problems and you solve it for us. Thank you because you sent Dr. Manel to us to help us. Please, Lord, give us that spiritual energy so we can apply all we hear and all we learn in our life. Because you said, without me, you can't do anything. So we can't do anything without you. Please, God, help us all, with ourselves, with our kids, with our families, so we can glorify your holy name always and everywhere. Through intercession of Saint Mary, Archangel Michael, and all saints, God make us worthy to pray thankfully. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses against us. Lead us not temptation, but us evil one. Through Jesus, power, the glory, forever and ever. Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, one God, Amen. محبة الله يكون معكم. سلام الرب مع جميعكم. سلام.